Whether you recently watched the latest Gabby Petito documentary on Netflix or not, I know that many of you just want to know in a bullet point fashion, what did we learn from that documentary that we didn't know before? And that's whether you've deep dived the case or not, whether you know about it or not, maybe you just want to know, did we learn anything new? Should I watch that documentary? I would recommend it. It's a 3-part series and each part is about 45 minutes long and it features a lot of Gabby's family and friends as well as new evidence. So we did get to learn things because sometimes when you deep dive a case, as we have here at Grizzly True Crime, if you didn't know, you can just find a link to the playlist in the description box and you'll see. Then when a documentary comes out, it often turns out to be disappointing or incorrect, but that wasn't the case with this one. I really found it very interesting. You guys know my attention span. Sometimes I need to watch a little bit, do something else, watch a little bit, do something else. And I actually watched it all the way through, all 3 parts. So that should also tell you that it is interesting, even if you know about the case, right? So that's what I'm going to do today. Welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Grizzly, and let's just assume that you know about the case. If you don't worry. You could just expand the description box. There's a whole case background right up for you. Find the link to the playlist or go and watch that live stream replay. And within an hour 20, you'll have all the context and all the fluff and me explaining everything and showing the map and all of that. In this video, let's just do the bullet points. Please note that this content is for educational purposes and for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. More details available in the description box. Number 1, we got to see some behind the scenes footage because obviously we know that Gabby wanted to be a full-time content creator. She had saved up money to buy this van, to convert the van and to travel across the country with Brian Laundrie, which was actually a dream that she shared with her ex-boyfriend. We'll get to him later, Jackson, right? And so this was still her dream. This was her aspiration. She was so excited about it, but Brian felt it was stupid that she couldn't do it. Didn't believe in her, didn't build her up. Even in the behind the scenes footage that we've never seen before, from the drone, from the cameras, from the phones, you can see that Brian was breaking her down. He didn't say if she's like, oh man, I really suck at this. He's not like, no, you don't, you can do this. Oh no, he would almost enable that belief. Like, yeah, this is dumb, right? And earth to Brian, who's no longer with us, but anyone thinking that it's just not feasible, it absolutely is, especially for their exciting life. They were van lifers. They were traveling across the country to the most beautiful places available. And of course she could have done this full time. She only uploaded 1 video to their YouTube channel, obviously because Brian murdered her on August 27th of 2021. And we're going to get to the details of the timeline because that was very interesting to me as well, to fill in some of those blanks and even just to know where things likely happened, right? So seeing some of Gabby's journal entries was new. Actually hearing them, because the producers used AI technology to make that it's Gabby's voice reading her own journal entries. That was amazing to hear and to see some of her artwork, while at the same time being sad because she was writing like, I don't deserve Brian. I'm on my phone too much. I'm so lucky that he sticks with me, which, just seeing the big picture of this case, that is so sad. He had chipped away at her self-worth and controlled her for so long that she truly started to believe she wasn't good enough, she didn't deserve him, that, he was just sticking with her. And I mean, in reality, he was a complete leech. He didn't do anything. He didn't contribute to buying the van at all. Yes, he helped to convert the van, but I mean, he was just kind of just there for the ride along with no survival instinct, really. What I mean is, like, how are you going to make income? How is this going to be sustainable? It seemed like he had no ability to think forward. And that's one thing, but then to get angry about it and to break someone else down when Gabby very much could think forward. She had a plan, a strategy. She was making a website. She made the YouTube channel. She was editing all the footage. She was doing all that work, and he was just annoyed by it, which we saw that attitude as well. We also saw that through some text messages because we learned that Gabby worked 50 hours a week at Taco Bell, and she was so enthusiastic about it. She was telling everyone to have a taco-tastic day and really enjoying, the friendships she made with the colleagues and everything, and spending time with her friend Rose, who we got to see quite a bit in this documentary as well. And Brian literally texted her that he can't believe that she became one of those lowlifes, that it's effing disgusting. While he was sitting at his mama's house, drawing things, not even original things, tracing things. If you want a deep dive on his art, it's on the playlist. We've looked at I think we looked at every piece of artwork that he did, which is very, very dark. Dark psychology, which obviously provides some context for what happened in this case. So seeing that as well, the text messages that Brian was sending her when he felt abandoned or neglected or jealous, possessive, all of that, oh man, that was quite something. That really upset me, seeing that he said that's so effing disgusting, that she became one of those that like, ooh, works at Taco Bell. Can you believe it? And yet off he went with her in the van, and even after he murdered her, to take her van and drive it all the way back to Florida, park it at his parents' house, and then they got rid of the mattress, they got rid of the car seat cover, they didn't find those items, and that was also shocking. So we've gone over that before in previous documents. Let's keep on point, okay? Because I really could talk about this case for hours, but I would like to make this concise for you. So another thing that we learned was that Gabby Petito had reached out to an ex-boyfriend, and that was in the time when Brian had flown home to clean out a storage unit. That remains a mystery of what he was really doing. Okay, and that was on August 22nd. She was alone in Salt Lake City, Utah, okay, in a hotel. And she reached out to an ex-boyfriend, Jackson, who he said that Gabby was the love of his life, and that the two of them had dreamed of converting a van, traveling all across the country together. But the timing wasn't right for their relationship, and so they broke up. And obviously she started dating Brian. And so he said she reached out and said, I'm probably the last person on the planet that you want to hear from. And then he called her. And he said that she told him that she was dating Brian, that they got into these arguments, and, he didn't elaborate, but I would assume that she told him about the Moab police incident and just all of that. And he said that he felt in hindsight this was a cry for help. Eventually, because she was still communicating with him from that August 22nd, and remember she was murdered on August 27th, sometime that night, right? So in between those dates, she was Snapchatting him, she was texting him, and she'd actually called him on the day that she was last alive, between the Mary Piglet's Tex-Mex restaurant that Brian and Gabby went to, where he was seen very agitated, very angry. They didn't want to pay the bill. Gabby said the chicken made her feel sick, so we learned that as well. And that, he was just very angry and pacing outside and all of that. And in between that and the Whole Foods market footage that we got to see before as well, she had actually called Jackson. And he missed the call because he was at work. And I really hope that he doesn't blame himself, that he doesn't feel guilty at all. It's not his fault. But of course we all wonder, what would she have said? What was she going to say? Because she called him sometime then. I wonder where was Brian? Was she in the car with him? Where was she at that time? It's like, oh my word. So, yes, she had told him that she wanted to leave Brian, that she just needed to know how and when. And that's also unbelievable and highlights, this coercive control and domestic violence that Gabby was experiencing, because there she was alone in a hotel in Salt Lake City, Utah. Brian was in Florida cleaning out a storage unit and visiting his family. And Gabby was telling this guy that she just needed to figure out like how and when to leave Brian, where, if you think about it, logically, she was free. She could have left. But that's not how coercive control works. She felt completely entrapped and felt like she can't get away, even though she physically could. And that is just so sad, right? Now let's get to the timeline of August 27th of 2021. That's Gabby's last day alive. So I've already mentioned the Tex-Mex restaurant, the call to the ex-boyfriend. Then they went to Whole Foods, and that Whole Foods footage is the last known footage of Gabby alive. Then Brian and Gabby drove up to the Spread Creek dispersed camp, where we then know that the channel called Red, White, and Bethune, they've renamed the channel to Being Bethunes, they captured dash cam footage of the van between 6 and 6:30 p.m. that day. And so Gabby had texted her mom that day saying that they're driving to a campsite now, and she said that She had told Brian that she could make more money as a solo female van lifer and that he was going to camp in the woods and that she would be in the van alone. So that was interesting as well. And I do think that that's plausible that that happened because Brian may have gone across to that Spread Creek dispersed camp, not where the van was, but across the creek where Gabby's body was later found. There was a burn scar on the ground as if someone had tried to start a little fire or something, right? I mean, did Brian fail at that? Did it make him mad? Did he walk across the creek and then whatever unfolded? What we do know, and we learned from this documentary, is that Gabby was alive at 8:32 p.m. because investigators say that she had moved video files on her laptop. And they said based on her previous behavior on her devices, they truly believed that that was her, that she was alive, and that she was at the van. Then we learned that they believed that Gabby was killed there at the van and that Brian then moved her body to where she was later found. We do not know exactly when he moved her body. Obviously, I would say it would have been in the middle of the night, but I still wonder to myself, after everything we've learned, would it have been that night or would it have been after his little hike and alibi attempts, shall we call it? We'll get into that in a moment. But yes, they believe that she was killed near the van and Brian moved her, which, if you remember, when Brian took his own life and he had that dry bag with him and he'd written all those notes and the whole narrative, his confession, which is just utter crap. There's a little bit in there. There's a tiny fraction that I think could have some truth in it with this whole like walking across the creek and it being cold and the water and just everything, right? And Gabby falling and all of these things. I just wonder if that was his, difficult walk across that creek, carrying Gabby in the dark at the same time to stage the scene. So investigators say he staged the scene where her body was found. That she was found lying on her left-hand side in fetal position, wrapped in a sweater. They showed us a picture in this documentary of the sweater as well that she had worn before, which was previously described as one of her favorite sweaters, and that her hiking boots were placed next to her. And she was just left there in the wild like that. Then we learned that the next day, Brian went on a hike. We knew this, but new information was that, oh, holy crap, he took pictures of scenery and of animal bones all along the way. Like, this guy is so sick. Oh, my word. Taking pictures of these deceased animal remains, probably thinking that Gabby's remains would end up like that. I'm speculating, but I think that's what he was doing, especially if you think again about the little notes that he left in his dry bag. He told his family that he had taken his own life there by the creek, hoping that animals would rip him apart and that Gabby's family would be happy with that. I think that that's what he was hoping would happen to Gabby's remains, and I think that he didn't think that anyone would find her. Thank goodness for social media and Red, White, and Bethune looking at the dashcam footage, narrowing down that area to search, saying there was the van on August 27th at this time. They put together all the digital data. They knew that Gabby was alive at 8:32, and so they searched a radius there, and they found her body on September 19th of 2021. But yes, knowing that Brian was taking pictures like that, and then we got to see the texts. We've heard about them, we'd never seen them, the texts that he sent to Gabby's phone, which all went unread until he got back to Spread Creek Dispersed Camp after hitchhiking. He got 2 rides, one to Jackson Lake Dam, and then apparently he was freaking out about going to Jackson Hole. We learned about that before, but one was from Miranda Baker and her boyfriend. And then we got to see an interview with a lady called Norma, who took him from that area to the Spread Creek Dispersed Camp. And she said that there was a Bible on the dashboard and it slid off and fell in his lap. And he just picked it up and put it back on the dashboard and kind of smiled at her. And he didn't want her to take her all the way to the campsite, just to leave him at the gate. And so we had heard that before, but it was interesting, obviously, to see her face, to hear her words, to hear her experience of picking Brian up, who she wouldn't have known that he was a killer. She just saw, oh, there's a hitchhiker, shame, let me give him a ride, right? So knowing that when Brian got back to the camp, oh, now suddenly Gabby's phone is replying to him. So investigators said that it was, Brian would have been sitting in the van or at the van with both phones next to each other, texting each other. I mean, that is just so sick that he did that as well, pretending to be Gabby, pretending that she was alive. And it gets worse because then, of course, we know that he departed the area. I think that was on August 29th, yes, of 2021. He departed the area and drove to Florida And along the way, he used Gabby's debit card to put gas in the van. He took her van. He left her remains out there in the wild like that. And as we know from previous deep dives, he was updating his Spotify playlist. He bought pizza. And then he transferred money to himself, which we got to see the receipt in this documentary, $700 with a memo that said, "Goodbye, Brian. I'll never ask you for anything again." I mean, in what world does that make sense? Right? Like, what was Brian thinking? He's got her van. It just shows that he felt entitled to it. He didn't think, oh, I'm taking her van and this will make no sense. That she's like, "Goodbye, Brian," because where is she? Why is she sending $700 to say goodbye? Who does that? No, none of that makes any sense. So, but we did get to see that as well. Okay, now speaking about Brian going back to his parents' house. Firstly, on August 29th, they showed records of Brian making a lot of calls to his parents, a 54-minute call to his mother, Roberta, and then also the dad calling the lawyer, and then them calling him back. And so while he's hiking and alibiing and all that, he's also talking to his parents, and they absolutely knew that Gabby was no longer alive, and they helped him lawyer up, right? And then we also know about the burn after reading letter, which we knew about before and had read. But man, in this documentary, they really showed just how jealous and possessive Roberta was over her son. She even, when Gabby had moved in to their home with Brian, okay, she, behind Gabby's back, behind everybody's back, went and changed Gabby's postal address back to her own mother's house. Her mother got notified and said, "Are you moving back here?" And Gabby's like, "Why?" And she's like, "I just got notified that you've changed your postal address back to our house." And Gabby's like, "Oh man, that was probably Brian's mom." And then Gabby's mom said, "Man, is she gonna ship you up here or ship that up here? Because yeah, she hates you, you know." And in hindsight, yeah, I think Roberta really wanted Brian, her son, to herself. We also got to see some text messages where Gabby said to Brian, "I feel like I've done something wrong. Like, I don't know, like the mom, Roberta, was being weird to her. And she's like, I just wanted to go grocery shopping. So I don't know what's for dinner. And I don't really want to leave the room because it feels like I did something wrong." And Brian said, shaking my head, "I'm ashamed. Just say goodbye to her." And he told Gabby that this had happened, you know, a lot of times when he was growing up, and it usually just blows over. But, you know, just hearing Brian be like, "I'm ashamed." Like, he was so ashamed of so many things. Oh, Gabby working at Taco Bell. Oh, my word, his mother's behavior. But like, did you look in the mirror ever, dude? I think he thought he was really cool. We also saw some footage of when Gabby and Brian were in high school. We got to hear from some of their friends as well, and that they both said this was love at first sight, and that they were both part of the art community. So we saw some footage of Brian, you know, with a guitar, and just thinking he's ultra cool, in my opinion. If you go look at it, it's like, oh my word. And one of these friends said that when Brian proposed to Gabby, he didn't even have a ring. He had this grand plan, according to this friend, took Gabby camping. There were deer around. It was a beautiful nature scene, and he proposed, but he didn't have a ring. So it's kind of like impulsive, but also premeditated to not have a ring, which again is confusing, you know, for the victim of coercive control and domestic violence to be like, oh, like this is so special. This is so exciting. But at the same time, like, where's the ring? Like, am I not worth that effort? Like, where is, you know, that? And so he told this high school friend that actually a firefly landed on Gabby's ring finger as he was proposing, and they knew then that nature wanted them to be together. Now, if that really happened, I do apologize, but I just think that that's a load of crap that Brian made up. I really think he's like romanticizing his complete lack of anything. Really just a spineless creature doing the bare minimum to control Gabby, to hold on to her, to possess her, and just break her down. You know, not even planning something special like giving her a ring when you're going to propose, especially at such a young age. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you want to put a ring on it, but you don't even have a ring. Like, that is just so crazy to me. And be like, it was a beautiful night. There was a firefly. Really? On her ring finger. Sure. Brian, I think he's got a lot of tall stories, as we've seen from his little notebook ramblings before he took his own life. Also, we got to see some of the photos that he kept in a box that he took with him when he took his own life, that he had packed a backpack and a tent and flares and all sorts of things. And also obviously this like memory box with pictures of Gabby and him in it. And obviously his parents had known that he had taken a gun. Their story, according to this documentary, not that we got to see them, but what was narrated was that they truly thought that he was coming back. He told them that he was leaving so that he could just relieve some of the pressure of all these protesters outside the house, because people were protesting outside the Laundrie home saying, "Where's Gabby?" And somehow Brian managed to slip out of the home and drive a car all the way to the Myakkahatchee Creek, which is not far, but I just mean, really? And the police didn't see that, even though they installed a camera. So we got to hear from the Northport Police Public Information Officer, who he talked utter crap in the documentary, as Gabby's family have now confirmed in subsequent interviews. He's like, well, we missed him leaving because of all the protesters. Like, oh yeah, blame the YouTubers and the protesters. Meanwhile, they weren't really checking, the surveillance cameras that they had set up. They missed it. And even worse, here's another thing, is that when Brian had left the vehicle at the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park, when he left the vehicle there, it got ticketed because you're not supposed to leave a vehicle there for too long, obviously. Roberta received the ticket. She went there. She fetched the vehicle. When she got back to her home and got out the vehicle wearing a cap, the police are like, "There's Brian." And you know what's so bad is that in this documentary, we got to learn that Cassie and Roberta were laughing about it. And I'm like, whoa, read the room. We can laugh about it. You can't laugh about it because you were the people with the information that you refused to share. Gabby's family was frantically looking for Gabby. They just wanted to know, where is she? The Laundries knew. And we thought all along maybe Cassie didn't really know what was going on. But those jokes, those messages between her mom and her, that was interesting as well. Okay, so yeah, I don't even know why they had that PIO from the Northport Police Department in the documentary, because there was no need for it whatsoever. Another thing that we learned from this documentary is that Gabby's family actually went back they took a trip and they went back to that Spread Creek dispersed camp. And they scattered some of Gabby's ashes there. And they took a photo there, and whether you believe in this or not, there was an orb, like a big orb in this photo, and they believe it was Gabby's presence that was there with them. And so they just said, while some people, they didn't say this in the documentary, they said this in a follow-up interview that I had watched, right? They said that some people kind of snarked at them of like, why would you scatter her ashes there where her body was left? But they said it was such a beautiful area, one of Gabby's favorite areas, that it was just perfect and her presence was there. They felt they needed to go there and scatter some of her ashes there. So that's what they did. And they showed some of that footage as well, which was very special to see. To be part of that, it's very special to see that. Rose and Jackson also went along, which was also very special. That would be the ex-boyfriend and one of Gabby's best friends. We had already known that Gabby met Rose on Bumble. Now just remember, a lot of people say, ooh, Bumble, that's a dating app. But Bumble has at least 3 different directions. One could be Bumble BFF, is to make friends. There's Bumble dating, and then there's also Bumble business or networking. I can't remember what it's called. One of those. So you could either network for business, you could find people to date, or you could find friends. And Gabby and Rose had met on Bumble, and they spent a lot of time together. And Rose actually mentioned in this documentary that Brian would tag along sometimes, and it felt like a parent being there on a play date. Like, she was like, what the hell is he doing here? And she did feel that he was very controlling, very manipulative, that there was something off about him. And she actually said that she had seen Gabby that upset before. And by that, I mean like the Moab body cam footage. She had seen her that upset before, and it was because of Brian. So her take on things was very interesting to hear as well. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I could definitely go on for another half an hour about things, but I've already done that in the live stream. So just go check that one out. Something I also learned from subsequent interviews of her family is that they had Gabby's van crushed because they didn't want someone else to buy it. And obviously it's so much pain for them to keep it. So they had it crushed, and they kept some parts of it, like the gas cap and some stickers and mementos like that, which was also very special to see in subsequent interviews. There was a 2020 interview and that I've just seen clips of on YouTube, and they've also been on some other YouTube channels, which I'm sure you could find if you just search for it, right, on YouTube. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that now you know what we learned that we didn't know before. If there's anything that I left out, feel free to put it in the comments, because as you know, I'm trying to keep it concise over here, okay? And I will keep you posted if there's anything else that you want me to analyze or touch on or whatever in this case. Obviously, we could do that, but I would recommend first checking out the playlist, because we've really done a deep dive from just about every angle of this case already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe.